Hi everybody, it's Thea. Welcome back to Garden Goddess Tarot and welcome back to the second video in my top 5 decks ever series. And this one specifically is going to be for Oracle decks. So this is going to be my official ranking top 5 Oracle decks of all time based on my experience. A lot of pressure. This one, Tarot was Tarot. Tarot was kind of clear. I kind of knew. But with Oracle, because there's really no system or structure or rules to an Oracle deck, they really kind of cater themselves to whatever your particular practice is. So specifically with this video, I'm going to want you to take the way I practice into account a lot more, and your results may vary, shall we say. So definitely, if you've got a completely different path and practice to the way I go about doing what I do, then your top 5 list is gonna look way different. But I tried to keep it as, open and broad as possible. But for the most part, obviously, I'm going to pick decks that work with the type of practice that I have, and that's just the way it's gonna be. So yes, Oracle is wildly, vastly different from Tarot. Tarot is a 78 card structure system based around 4 elements. 5 technically, if you count the majors as a separate element of spirit, but some people do, some people don't. Anyway, whereas Oracle, there's no bounds. It doesn't matter how many cards, doesn't matter what the topic or theme is. It really doesn't matter. You're kind of letting the will of the universe show you what cards you need to see at the time you need to see them, and that's kind of how I rectify the, Tarot Oracle quandary. There's usually like 2 camps. There'll be like people who are like, no, Oracle's stupid. Tarot is far superior. But I think ultimately when you think about it long enough, the use of them boils down to the same premise eventually. So yeah, but yeah, that's a fun thing to think about though, if you want to take some time to sit and think about the differences between Tarot and Oracle, why they work, which you prefer, why you prefer those, and then just kind of like sort it out between you and yourself, how like the systems and the nature of each type of deck and like what makes one better or worse to you, and then kind of like think about that as well. And then you fall into the wonderful trap of, does better and worse even exist? And oh my god, and then but it's a fun time. It's a fun time. Highly recommend. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. This video is a top 5 list. So let's get into it. Let's talk. I think first I want to talk about the Devas of Creation, because this has been with me a long time. This is a long-time friend, this deck. It is fantastic for daily draws. It is fantastic. It clarifies fairly well, but this is an altarpiece, this deck. This deck is an altarpiece. It is beautiful. It is a friend. It is a constant companion, and it really is the best kind of, I refer to a deck as like a weather vane a lot of the time. It's a good way for testing the energy of a situation or your day. It's really like, this whole thing is physical expressions of energy. And when you do a lot of energy work, that's something you kind of want to keep tabs on. And I think this is a really, really handy and great tool for that kind of work. So this is the Devas of Creation Oracle deck by Scylla Conway. I'll do my best to link these down below for you as well. It's an independently produced deck. So it comes from the UK. It's infinitely worth it though. There is a second one, the multi-dimensional Devas. That one, it really gets into, again, multiple dimensions, more of an expansive view even. But this it keeps it tight and concise, and it really within this holds so much of the physical energy of processes on the earth, as well as the way that energy expresses itself as matter in the earth. But it's a neat little package, and it's really well done. Like, this almost has its own system to it. And if you've got a practice that leans more towards an animist worldview, this kind of deck is going to be really great. Like an expansive animist worldview, not just like a really strictly earth-based animist view. It's an animist view that kind of is all-encompassing, an animist view that goes beyond just physical, that touches into, the realm of feeling and thought and emotion, right? Every one of those little things has its own little spirit in this. In a case, we're calling them Devas, right? And this deck kind of captures them and allows you to work with them in a really useful and wonderful way. So it's a gem. It is a treasure. She's one of my faves. I've been pulling a daily card, not daily, often. I switch them up. When I notice that the energy is shifted, I'll pull a new one and see where I'm at. And a lot of the times, if I'm incorrect, this one spits out cards repeatedly. Like, I had the seed card and I was like, okay, I think we're done with that one. And then I pulled another one and there it was again. Like that kind of stuff happens to me with this deck like all the dang time. So it's really useful for that. This deck is you're going to get the most mileage out of this deck if you're familiar with the planets and you have kind of your own symbolic meaning for the planets, as well as the seasons are in here. There's things like Adam. It's really, it's a great deck if you've got kind of your basis, your rough outline, spiritual experience, and not like knowledge. You've got a rough. You already have your own personal meanings of those. The guidebook is good. It'll help, but I think this deck really works best once you've already got a foundational understanding of what these energies mean to you and what they mean when you see them, like what that means to you in your life. Because that's what you're looking for here, right? We're directing the signs and symbols of the energy of the world around us and applying it to the way we experience our lives and how we're going to use that energy to mold and change the way we go about our business on our little timeline, right? Like that's what we're doing here in a mouthful of words. So this has been infinitely helpful for me. It's a weather vane. It kind of tells me where I'm at, or if I ask it, you know, what do I need to move towards? What am I looking towards? What is the theme of this month? Just, it's fantastic. It's so good. And something like this really, I don't know, it's a good example of how I view my practice, I guess one could say. Which leads me into the second one. So these are energetic expressions of physical phenomena, as well as some non-physical, more ethereal energies. Keeping that in mind, the next deck is one that does the same thing, but in a different way. And it is this one. It had to be on here. Had to be on here, and it had to be quite up near the top. This is the Devas of Creation, but with a Greek mythology slant. And these are really almost borderline interchangeable for me. Actually, that would be a really fun video sometime. If I went through these decks, maybe that'd be a good member video. If I went through these decks and I compared and contrasted, like I paired them up. So like the cards in this that have basic correspondences in this based on their meaning, their spiritual meaning, like which gods, it'd be easy, especially with the planets, right? And this one, which ones have crossover? And I imagine there's a great deal of crossover between these two decks, just in meaning and energy, for sure. That'll be fun. Actually, I'm gonna write that one down. But this is the Hellenic Oracle. For those of you not familiar, this is my baby. This is, you know, house on fire, run in and grab it on the way out. My Joy could get another one, but this one, she was my first one. This is the first edition. There's a revised edition out now, as well as an expansion to it, but I really still use this first one the most. This is a Greek mythology themed oracle deck, but keeping in mind, most of this is deities. Specifically, there's the occasional human and a lot of places, so like physical expressions of spiritual energy. The planets are all covered in their own unique, wonderful way. If you know the associations, there's the Titan gods. You really get into the creation myth I love creation myth. I don't know about you guys, but I am a sucker for a good creation myth. Give me a creation myth. Tell me a story. I will listen to it all day. But all of that energy is wrapped up in the cards of this deck and the expressions of the way the world is right now, things we can see and feel and touch and experience, all have ties back to the deity that represents them. So in a way, Greek gods are just devas of, you know, physical expressions, or I guess in this case, divine expressions of physical experiences on the earth is what they kind of rule over, what they exist in. And for me, I really feel like from the animist perspective, the spirit of these Greek gods exists within the physical processes that they represent, right? Whether it's the planets, whether it's the earth itself, whether it's the rivers or the ocean or the sky or the clouds or the rain or the thunder and the lightning. Music, everything has its own god, and that's what it is. When you're experiencing that, you're experiencing that god, and that is a way to kind of really bring this particular practice into your daily life, because every day you are encountering the devas of these deities, and it's a joy and a treat, and then you can you know do with that what you will, right? It's so fantastic. I love it so much. So this was a deck that I needed to exist in an expansive and all-encompassing type of way. And when you get the expansion mixed in with this bad boy, it's like 150 cards. But you've got a really good and expansive way to combine those energies for divination if you want to use it that way. If you want to use it for spiritual growth, you're figuring out your way on your path, your journey. If you want to use them as altar cards, if you want to use them as, you know, devotional icons of worship, if you want to use them as, you know, there's no rules. Do with these what you will. And it's just so wonderful for that. So I'm obsessed with just like the deck in concept. It was something I needed to exist as it is, so I made it. I think that was what I was getting at there. That's what I was trying to say. Since I made it, I created it with neoclassical art, and all of the Greek titles are on there. They've been transliterated to English for ease of use. The thing with the Devas, there's no titles on this deck. You learn them after a while, right? When it's the kind of deck that you want to use repeatedly, it becomes a part of your practice in your life. And once you get to that point with it, once you're familiar with it in such a way, it becomes second nature to read with it. And they're really easy to pick up on because they're things you know. They're things you've experienced your whole life. They're natural forces that you learned about in kindergarten, right? Like all of these things exist in the world. And, you know, now you've got this image that kind of is a capture of that energy, and you can, you know, fuss about with it. But anyway, there's no titles on that, so you've got to learn them. But this one at least has the names on them, and then you just do a quick look up. There's a wonderful website, an encyclopedia online of Greek gods that's totally free, which is the absolute best if you're unsure about what a card means for you at a certain time. But, you know, after you use it, you become you've learned it, right? And I think you're more familiar with these energies than you think you are, even, because especially if you've grown up in a Western society, the themes of Greek mythology they're baked into the way we live our lives, right? So it'll feel more familiar than you think, for sure. But what can I say? The Hellenic Oracle is one of my top 5 Oracle decks of all time, obviously. So I had to talk about it. There's a whole video on it if you want. And I'm working on a masterclass series in the member space. There's 3 or 4 videos there now. And we're just about to get into the Olympians with any luck. So that'll be a fun time. Just if you wanted to kind of feel my perspective on the Greek gods. But again, this is deity work is really based on you and your relationship and how you interact with that energy and how you find meaning in what they represent. And it spills over into things like astrology as well, because of the correspondences between the planets and the gods, and then you can interact with those energies that way. And then when you're doing astrology, you can call in on your, you know, Greek mythology associations and tie it all together into a big bow. So it's you know, adding layers to an existing knowledge base that lets you do what you need to do. So it's fantastic, it's wonderful, it's lovely, and I love it so much. So that is deck number 2. So we got the Devas of Creation by Cilla Conway, the Hellenic Oracle, and then, okay, the next one on the list is another one that is, it encompasses an existing, not worldview, it's, what's the word? Topic, genre? What do you call it when you have a class at school? Subject. Subject is the word I'm looking for. It's like a whole subject within kind of occult tradition. And it's a good kind of complete reference, and it has everything you kind of are looking for within that subject. And it's a really handy, again, I use it the same way as I use the Devas of Creation, as kind of like a weatherbane, daily draw, on the altar kind of deck. And it is Kim Cran's Alchemy Oracle. It's really good. And this is coming from me as a person who uses the transformative aspects of the nature of alchemy to get stuff done. So the alchemy deck is something that is a absolute given for me in my practice. It's wonderful. It's a great clarifier. I'm not one to pull a big spread with this, which, although it's tempting because of like the weird hexagonal shape, I do also kind of love that it has 6 sides as well, though. Like, for me, that means something too. But it has the alchemical processes in it. It's not a perfect deck. There are a couple things I would change about it, which I've talked about at length before. We're not going to get into that, but otherwise, it's pretty dang good. It has beautiful depictions, the imagery and color, the way use of color in this deck is also really quite good. Of the processes, of the metals, of just, you know, again, we've got another physical or symbolic representation of, you know, physical change, in this case, alchemical change, which is really easy to work with. And I love it so much. Another deck that has some planets in it too. You're probably noticing a theme here. All 3 decks so far have had the planets in them, as well as, you know, symbolic representations of the physical world. It's really that my practice is tied to the physical world in that way. It's not all totally up in your brain ephemeris ideas and that sort of thing. There is strong physical ties to the actual world, and I really feel like that helps. It helps so much because it keeps you from getting lost, I think. Smoke, the ether, virgin's milk. I love this card, so good. Yes, contra natura, against nature, and you can see how these concepts translate really well in divinatory settings as oracle card meanings in just your run-of-the-mill kind of reading. Yes, I have a tattoo that looks very similar, but it's just, yeah, I love symbols. I love symbols, and that's why I love card work so much, because it's working with symbols to kind of steer the direction of my own personal mythology is really what it is that I'm doing, so yeah, look at that. Ooh, ooh. So fantastic. So the Alchemy Oracle by Kim Krans is quite good. It's very useful, really practical. Just put it in the box upside down. I say it's useful and practical as I find it impossible to put back in this box, but you know what I mean. Just like in a content kind of situation. It's really not the easiest to shuffle in the world, but we don't care. We're in it for the content, and the contents of this is gold, right? Right. Alrighty. The next one that we were talking about is this guy. This is, oh, I meant to mention the Kim Krans deck is mass market as well, readily available, easy peasy, so you'll enjoy that one. Her other decks are quite good as well. The Archetypes deck is also excellent, but I don't use it as much, and that was the kicker. Couldn't make the list, so the Alchemy one wins. It's my favorite of her Oracle decks. Okay, this next one I was rocking with the bag. Look at this, isn't that beautiful? Little drop of sunshine there. For the Oracle of the Radiant Sun has made it to the number 4 spot. The Oracle of the Radiant Sun. John Astrop and Carolyn. I'll write it in. I always forget. I think it's his wife. This is so good. And okay, I'm a sun worshiper. I connect with the sun so easily, so working with the energy of the sun and the way the sun moves its way through the sky, the constellations, the zodiac, and the meaning of that energy, just so easy for me. It's wonderful. So this deck is one that works really well for that kind of work. Divination, it's so good. This is probably the closest to like a classical divination type deck on this list, and it's really good for it. Here, I'll show you some cards. So the premise of this one is you've got the planet and the zodiac sign that it's referring to. So in this case, we've got the sun in Aries, and then a keyword that kind of ties those energies together. It's almost tarot. It's like so close to tarot, but it's its own thing because of the parameters of its own system, right? It's also just the first 7 of the classical planets, so we're not touching on Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. In this deck, it's just Moon through Saturn and the way those energies interact with the different zodiac. Otherwise the deck would just be massive. And then there is technically a house number at the top, but I don't consider it. It's not part of what I consider. I just kind of see it as, for example, this one, Mars in Gemini, decision. So you take the kind of authorial stance of Mars mixed with the kind of reflection aspect and duality of Gemini, and then you get the act of making a decision is kind of how it's beautiful how they've worked together. This deck is just so wonderful, and it's really great to use with tarot because tarot already has those planetary associations to it if you follow tarot via a kind of occult perspective. So it's just it works really well. Plus it's really beautiful next to it. So this deck is great. Is it out of print? It is mass market. I thought for a while it might have been going out of print, but I'm not sure. I'll have to double check for you. but if you can get your hands on a copy of it, it's one that is just infinitely useful. It's just a fantastic reader. If you like to divine by the stars and the sun, in this case. So good. So I had to include that one. Yeah, Venus in Aries. Lust. Right? Beautiful. And then, okay, so if you know your tarot correspondences, there is a Venus in Aries Decan card, which is the 4 Wands. Very beautiful. I love it. Completion and lust, very much the same. This is a good one. Mars in Aquarius. So again, we've got the kind of assertiveness of the Mars energy mixed with the kind of, I don't know, I don't take no shit from nobody energy of Aquarius, and then you've got a rebellion on your hands, right? Like a powered by fire and then governed by deviance. Like it's or going against the grain, I guess, in what case, like going against the establishment of Aquarius. It's wonderful. I love this. This is so good. And it makes a really, really good oracle deck. So it had to be on here. It is number 4 of my top oracle decks ever list. And it's just a nice little guy. He's not too big and imposing. Wonderful. Very practical. One of my favorites ever. Okay, number 5. Number 5 is so hard. I am torn. I am absolutely heartbroken between these 2 decks, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to choose. But I think one, just I use it more and I love it more, so I have to talk about it. Number 5 is the Kantaji Oracle by the wonderful illustrator of the Luminous Void Tarot, Laura Zuspin, and the author is Ray Diamond. And this oracle deck is so good. If you have an earth-based practice, if you like that kind of animistic feel of the energy and the aliveness of the land around you, this oracle deck just feeds your soul. The way the guidebook is written is like poetry. There's also practical examples of actions you can take, of ways to enhance your practice. It's just, this guidebook is definitely worth reading. It's laid out in kind of in a yearly system as well, so there's a subtle system involved, which you can each of these oracle decks have their own subtle little system. It's not a free-for-all. I like a little bit of structure, and I find these decks really reflect that. And so I did a yearly walk with this. I pulled a card a week for a whole year and experienced that energy. And it is kind of, this deck is designed to follow the seasonal year, and it's beautiful, and it was a wonderful experience. I loved it so much. And I put the cards out in the window, and you can see on the sunny days, the backs of some cards got like for the week out in the sun, they got kind of bleached compared to what they originally were. And now it's just, the deck's been kissed by the sun and it soaked it up, and it's just, oh, it's a wonderful magical item right now. It's just fantastic. And I got a card with teeth. Again, I love a teeth card in the Garden of Lost Teeth, but it's a really beautiful way to kind of reflect and embrace the energy of the world around you in a really organic way. This is an organic deck. It's wonderful and beautiful for that purpose. I love it so much. So, Kantaji Oracle by Laura Zuspin and Ray Diamond is just a beautiful, reflective deck. Another good weather vane. Another good one to kind of feel around your current energy, what you need to do, what kind of feelings and actions you need to embrace, what challenges may face you. And the titles on this are more than just keywords as well. They're phrases, and they really, it is poetry. It is the voice of the moon. Your feet are 2 fish. This is my favorite card in the whole deck. Your feet are 2 fish. Think about it. Feel it in your body. How do you react to that? Licking the dew from green leaves, the calving glacier, your ears become a butterfly. And then the guidebook, the first section in italics there is a little story explaining the situation, what's going on here. It's like pathworking. It's putting yourself into the experience of the card, and it's so good. I love it so much. So it's mass market. It's fairly inexpensive. If you haven't tried it yet, please, I highly recommend give the Kantaji Oracle a try. You will not regret it. So those are my official 5. That is the 5 list. I've got 3 honorable mentions though, because they were up there. This here was the one that I almost chose over the Kantaji Oracle. I've had it longer. It's been with me through more, and it's got a great deal of use over the years. But I think ultimately Kantaji kicked it off. I think not that I'm falling away from a more psychoanalytic perspective, but it was the right choice. I felt it in my heart. This is a Super Oracle by Usi, and don't get me wrong, this deck is amazing. It's also indie, which is harder to get and more expensive too, so I did kind of factor that in as well. But this is a great deck if you like big kind of intellectual words to kind of examine the human experience. It's a great deck for contemplative thought, for challenging you in weird ways. It's also very beautiful, and it's a joy to hold. It's a wonderful one. It's a little slippery, but it is, you know, I enjoy the tactile experience of it, but more so, it's a black and white deck, which I also love. But the words are fun. I love the keywords, I do. But because it's less cards, it's less extensive, it didn't quite make the top 5, but it is so good and so wonderful. So if you like a deck that's along these lines, you're not necessarily, you know, tied to a complete and holistic system, something like this is one you might want to try out. And it's given me some really, really amazing readings over the years. Like, oh, and it has a nothing card as well. There's no teeth though. There's the nothing card. I do like the impasse card. That's always a bit of a jolt when it comes up in a reading. Perseverance, ego, individuation. That one showed up for me at a weird time one time. I still remember pulling that card. It was a big question. It was about, you know, what is it I'm trying to do here? And I got individuation. Oh, okay, of course. And there's a Deus Ex Machina card. God in the Machine. Intervening at the last minute. Mysticism. Like, of course I'm going to like this. Sageness. It works really well in a practical sense. Synchronicity. These cards are a little bit, you can find yourself stumbling over them as well. I've got the book, and the book kind of clears them up, but you really have to kind of go into your symbolic meaning of shape and color for these ones when you come up, because there's no keywords on them. For example, this one's just a blue disc with concentric circles in it, so you'll have to kind of decide what that means for you and how that comes up. The elements are in here as well, very easy to go on them. Improbability. This is wonderful. It's a great deck. There's spirit there. It's a bit of like subtle alchemical like imagery as well. Like the art style is very much of that time. It is beautiful. Ooh, I really like this card too. So yeah, a treasure and a great deck by Usi for sure. And that's the first runner-up. The next runner-up is a great deck that's really all-purpose. And I think when I think of like an oracle deck, when I think of like a, you know, if you ask someone what they think an oracle deck is, I think the first thing they'll think of is something like this. But this one is really good. And if you're gonna go for an oracle deck, Denise Linn's Sacred Destiny, you can't go wrong. It is cheap as chips, which is great. It matches a surprising amount of other decks aesthetically. Like, it goes so well with collage. I was surprised when I started pairing it with other decks how well it matched, not just the imagery, but the energy of the keywords. It works really well as a clarifier, I guess. This is probably the best clarifier on the list, maybe. Especially like aesthetically as well. But the keywords are great. They're simple, everybody understands them, you don't have to think too hard about it. The guidebook is good, but you don't need it. You don't need it with this one. Who's that guy? Yeah, that's abundance. Again, a deck with an abundance card, they're everywhere. So, you know, you're more simple, straightforward concepts, but at the same time, if you're especially doing public readings, you don't want to have to, you know, dig to the absolute depths of your soul to get a meaning for someone, and they just need something easy and quick and on the surface. Something like this is handy and good, and I have nothing against it. It's wonderful. I would never use it on its own. This one I have to pair with tarot. A lot of these other ones, my main top 5, I can use all of those on their own. They don't necessarily need tarot to back them up. This one needs tarot. I think on its own it's just not quite enough for me, just as it is. Because if I pulled the openness card, I would just be like, okay, what? Even if I had a question, it just isn't enough. It isn't enough. It needs some more esoteric nutrition for me. But that's not to say it's beautiful and sweet and can do a really good job when, for me, paired with other decks. Or, you know, for others as a lovely little treat. But it's so good. So the Sacred Destiny Oracle by Denise Linn is a classic and amazing. And if you're into oracle decks and haven't given it a try, would recommend. So it's on the honorable mentions list. And the last honorable mention is the first Oracle deck I ever got. And I think I did a really good job of picking, because I was really picky in the beginning, because I had a distrust of oracles because I was so like committed to tarot. Like I was like married to the idea of tarot as my divination system, and I really wasn't sure how I felt about oracle decks. But then I thought about it a lot more and it made sense. But this one, I spent a lot of time kind of deciding what kind of deck I wanted, what kind of deck had within it the types of energies that I wanted. And I think ultimately this is a precursor to like the Davids of Creation and the Hellenic Oracle and the Alchemy Oracle, because of its earthly connection. I wanted an oracle deck that was an example of the physical processes of the earth, and this deck really does it. Resilience there's evolution, a talk of like physical change over a long period of time, responsibility, deluge. So we have like, again, a physical process, right? There's water falling from the sky. You can work elementally with that really easily. There's a moon card, again, a physical entity. Productivity, mystery, memory, so again, a human experience there. Separate. That card, when it comes up, it always has something very specific to say. There's a patience card with crystals on it, again alluding to the passage of time. We get big with cards like the multiverse and source. So it had those things that I was looking for in an oracle deck, but just it wasn't quite everything. It was almost there, but it wasn't quite everything. So that's why it's unfortunately didn't make the top 5. I think it's just this lack of system. But the intention is there. It feels raw, it feels elemental, it feels really, really good in a reading, and I like it for that. And it's beautiful. You can't fault how beautiful this bad boy is. So this is by Claire Mack as well. Did I say? It's called the Illuminated Earth Oracle. And it's by Claire Mack. She has a tarot as well, and another a kind of more garden themed oracle deck, which they're very similar, but they're also quite different in their own thing. So I would highly recommend all of Claire Mack's work, because it's stunningly beautiful. Obstacle, this card, when that is clear. You don't have to think too hard about that one. As a guidebook goes, there's a little pamphlet inside the box. It's handy. It's got some keywords on it, but I think with this one, kind of really flowing from the depths of yourself when you're reading with it is the way to go, and you'll know the meanings when they show up with this one. It's really quite clear, so I love it. It's great, but it has to be an honorable mention, I'm afraid. So that's the Illuminated Earth Oracle by Claire Mack. So there we have it. That is my official top 5 plus honorable mentions oracle deck list of all time, from years of reading, years of trying out decks. These are the ones, like my go-tos, my tried and trues, the ones I go back to time and time again. I love them so much. They're useful. They encompass and reflect the parts of my practice that mean the most to me and how I work with what it is I work with. Love them so much. A lot of them are so good for reading for other people as well. They're my faves, my babies. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. A big thank you to everybody in the member space as well. I don't say it often enough in your videos and out here. I appreciate every one of you and love that you're there. It means the most to me, and look forward to a Samhain vlog and a very special Samhain reading for everybody coming this week. So just wanted to say that. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Deeply appreciate it, and I will see all of you fine people in my next video.